This will be a video to demonstrate the basic use of our Digimelt melting point determination apparatuses. So the first thing you're going to need to do when you come up is you're going to need to plug in the instrument, because these will remain unplugged and off, and when you finish they should be unplugged when you're done. And so the first thing you'll need to do is reach around to the back. In the back there is an on-off switch, so when you plug it in it probably won't come on because it won't be turned on. So when you turn it on, you'll see it light up. The LED readout will light up with the temperature of the heating block, and you'll also see a light that is shining through the viewfinder. So you're going to be determining the melting point of a substance that you will likely have an idea what it will be. So you'll need to set the starting temperature and the final temperature, or the stopping temperature. To do that, you'll see the three yellow buttons. The one on the left is the start temp, the one on the right is the stop temp, and the center is the ramp rate, which is how fast or slow the heating block will warm up. So for example, let's assume I'm going to check the melting point of a substance that I know has a melting temperature of 110 degrees. The rule of thumb, or the rule that I tell students, is you want to be 10 degrees lower than your expected melting point and go 10 degrees beyond your expected melting point. So for a 110 degree substance, I would want the start temp to be 100 degrees. So I push the start temp button and it will be no telling what it will be. Mine says 85. So I need to turn it up to 100. I use the center button, the 2 button, there's an up arrow, and I push it until I get to 100 degrees. Then I want the stop temp to be 120 degrees, so I need to go up to 120. If I needed to go down, I could use the number 3 button, which has the down arrow. That will bring it down. So up or down, you set the start temp, you set the stop temp. You'll also should check the ramp rate. The ramp rates, the default is 2. Actually mine's 5. I turn it down to 2. Again, this is how fast or slow it's going to warm up. So I've set the start and stop temp, and I hit the start button, and that just gets everything ready. Nothing's happening. You still see the yellow or the red cooling LED lit up. If I push it, or when I push it again, what you'll see is the LED will go up to preheat, and what's going to happen is now it's going to heat up very rapidly to the start temp, and it's going to sit there and wait. Okay, so while it's warming up, what you can do is prep your sample for the melting point. You'll need to get yourself a capillary tube. There's capillary tubes containers at the benches. Try not to make a mess like I'm doing. The capillary tubes have an open end. I'm not sure if you can see that, but there's one open end and a closed end. It's basically a long, thin test tube. And the best way to get substance in there is you need your substance to be a powder. I'm just going to use this. I have some samples here. So you take the open end, make sure that you have the right open end, and you jam it down into your sample 2 or 3 times, and what you're going to see is there's going to be some substance packed at the tip. You need to get that substance down at the closed end, and to do that there's a couple ways. You can just tap it on a hard surface a few times and it will pack down into the bottom like we need it. Or alternatively, if you look in the right hand lower corner of the melting point apparatus, there's these little inserts, and if you hit tube tapper it will load it for you. Some people like to do that because it's exciting, I guess. And then what you're going to do is you'll look above the viewfinder and you'll see that there are 3 slots that will hold the capillary tube. It doesn't matter which one you put it in. Just slide it down into there. And what you should be able to see, and I don't know if it's going to come through on my video, but what you should be able to see is you should be able to see, looking through the viewfinder, the solid in the viewfinder. Okay, so once you got it all loaded and ready to go, and the temperature has reached the starting temperature, what you're going to do is you'll see the LED now says ready, which means we're ready to roll, and you'll hit start, and it will start to melt. You'll see the LED saying melt, and what you should start to do now is look through the viewfinder and watch and make sure that you observe when the substance first begins to melt. So I'm not going to actually go through that process, but you get the idea. You're going to see it. It will start to get shiny. The crystals will get very shiny, and then you'll, if you're paying close attention, you'll see the very first moments when they start to turn liquid. When that happens, what you can do, you don't need to memorize or write down the temperature. You can click or push one of the 3 number buttons, and that will record that starting melting point range. And then continue to observe, and at the moment that you see all of the solid melt, you'll push another button, the 2 or the 3, and that will record the final temperature. Okay, and then you're done. What you'll do after that is you'll hit the stop, and you'll see the LED go down to cooling. It will start to allow the cooling to take place. And then if you want to recall your saved temperatures, you'll push the buttons. I didn't save any temperature, so that's why there's nothing showing. But if you push the buttons, if you've saved them, it will give you your temperature readings. And then once you've gotten your temperature readings done and you're all set, what you should do is turn off the melting point device, unplug the device, and then finally make sure that you remove your capillary tubes. Your capillary tube is now waste, which means since it's glass, it needs to go into the glass waste. Don't throw these into the solid or the regular waste because they are sharp and can injure the custodians who are taking the garbage out. All right, so that's the basic use of our Digimelt melting point device.